Hello students, this is Dr. Deb Watry giving you a review for week 5. Just think after this week, this coming week, there'll only be like 2 or 3 weeks left to the class. How fast that's going. So very quickly, let's get through our review. I want to congratulate you on completing chapter 1 and hopefully in a few days chapter 2. That's a tremendous amount of work. And you've been very diligent and conscientious about it. So chapter 1, just a real quick update. I sent an email note that I will do a revision for that chapter 1 for you. So you'd make the corrections and the changes and you send it to me during this time frame. And I will review it and revise it one more time for you. But it's not just necessary. If you feel confident that you don't want me to read it over again, this is kind of a free offering for you, but I will get your chapter 1, 2, and 3 at the end of the class. And this will allow you one more time for me to take a view of it and give you some feedback on it so you have it kind of solid by the time we get to the last assignment. A quick reminder, every week I put in a video, audio review with a list of some things. Do pay attention to that because I put in some important information for you in order for you to be successful as you proceed through the class. So this week will be a week 5 review once I get it finished. Upcoming now, that IRB submission. I've noted today that there were about 3 IRB submissions in there already. Please know that you need to follow the due date on this. I received an email, I forwarded it to you about from the IRB committee of some things they're looking for, but also I looked on the calendar. The last time the IRB committee meets is May 3rd, that's a Wednesday. And when I was looking through that submission process, they like the proposals 10 days ahead of time. So we are really in a tight time frame. So I'm hopefully, if I get these as they come in this weekend even, I will get them back to you and let you know, hey, polish number 12 or take a look at number 10. Give me a little bit more information there. I will read through your parent permission slips if necessary or your student permission slips. Do talk in there about if it's a student permission, they have to give assent of how you're going to handle that. So get them to me, I'll send them back as if anything needs to be revised or let you know right away that it's good to go because I have to start submitting these to the IRB committee. And we want to make sure that we keep them happy too. You cannot do any research until your IRB is approved. So that would be after May 3rd. So looking for some good IRB proposals. They are not that challenging to fill out. As you take a look at every week, there's certain things that you have to take a look at. The week 5 readings and materials are essential because this tells you the things that you have to read for that week and take a look at. And I know in the chapter 1 comments, there are a number of you I said, hey, you needed to take a look at this, or this was presented in this reading. This is your responsibility, and I'll go into chapter 5 readings in just a little bit. So we have a discussion, and we have your chapter 3 methodology coming in this week. And then after that, week 6 and 7 happen quickly, and there's not as much work, so we can ease off a little bit. So taking a look at chapter 4, the readings that are in this textbook. This is our BWE textbook. It's chapter 7. It lays out and explains all the components that need to go in that chapter 3 methodology. Please read that chapter carefully and follow the requirements and the not suggestions, but the things that you need to put in there. And BWE also gives very good examples to help guide you in that process. These are 2 essential readings that are in our reading. If you are doing quantitative research, take a look at this article because in the IRB and in your methodology chapter, you have to talk about what type of research. So if you're doing quantitative, most of you are by the Belli, author Belli, most of you are doing non-experimental quantitative research. So you want to look at that to find out what that is. There's 3 types: descriptive, predictive, and explanatory. And then you have to define that by purpose and time. And so he'll lay it out and tell you that there's 9 types of way you can define that. So read that, so that will help you in writing that chapter 3 methodology. Creswell, excellent researcher, writer on how to do research. He talks about the 5 qualitative approaches. So if you're doing a qualitative study, please read this chapter where he explains what a qualitative study is, and you'll pick one type out of the 5 described there. So when you're taking a look at Creswell, he talks about probably a lot of you might be doing a phenomenological study or grounded theory or perhaps a case study. In your chapter and methodology, you have to explain to the reader what type of approach you're taking, and you have to give a rationale and explain why. That's the best type of approach. And you consider, this is my research question, this is what I find out, and then you explain why you're using that type of approach. Now, I would say maybe take a reference as you're reading writing this chapter, and if you're doing this, you'd say Belay says that this type of approach works best, and you've got a nice citation there that supports the method that you're using. Same with if you're doing taking something out of Creswell. Some additional slides that are in there for you. This is an This is an article that compares quantitative and qualitative. Maybe at this point you're not sure that direction that you're taking. And this is a very well-researched article that talks about both types and gives you additional information. So as you're writing, perhaps you'll find something that Yalmaz says that kind of will support the method that you're choosing that can go into your chapter 3. Now, I have noted in the research that you're doing that some of you want to do a survey and get some quantitative data, but also then observe your students. In that case, you might be doing something similar to a case study. There's where you have what's called a mixed methods design. Okay, and I presented something just a little bit earlier. I think it was a chart in one of my handouts that talked about mixed methods. This is a very short and quick slideshow that lays out a mixed methods design and talks about the 2 different ways that you can do it. Quantitative data first, then qualitative, or qualitative data first and then quantitative. So if that is your situation, do take a look at the slides in that resource. Now, these are just additional resources that will help you. They're short, 1 page, 2 pages maybe of a PowerPoint slide that you should take a look at, which explains a little bit each of these components. In part of your methodology, you have to describe who your participants are. Please follow the Boyd textbook about what you have to write about your subjects and your participants, but this is a 1-page PowerPoint slide. And then lastly, there's 2 videos in there, one on qualitative and one on quantitative design. So as we go back and take a look, sorry that we're just scooting back and forth here, those are all in this section. And again, I'm going to say you have a responsibility to take a look over that and make sure that I see that stuff showing up in your writing. Here we go. So methodology here, your assignment now. This is only 3 to 5 pages, okay, and worth 10 points is a chapter of your thesis. I do use a scoring rubric when I read through it. I do look to see that you've lined it up to the Boyd text and to the template. So do make sure that you keep that in mind as you're writing it, and go back and check and read through that Boyd text to make sure that each section of your method chapter is solid. The research template was posted in week 3. You need to follow that APA format, and you need to follow the Boyd text chapter 7. One thing I'm checking on, I am not too sure that you use a colon here, but you do have to write this out, and this is the title of this chapter. You'd write a 2 to 3 page introduction, okay? So it'll start out like this. Do not put introduction, and then these are the subheadings of each parts of this chapter. Okay, so take a look in Vui what needs to go in there. Make sure that you explain each section carefully, and then you're going to end up with a summary where you talk about, summarize these major points. Again, state your problem and your purpose statement, what you're going after. I know Vui says it sounds like you're being redundant, but what if somebody just reads your chapter 3 and hasn't read your chapter 1 and your chapter 2? You want to make sure that you explain all of that again, but very briefly in every chapter. Okay, you're going to be doing that in every chapter, and you also use that summary to set the stage for your next chapter. Chapter 4 presents the data of this research. Okay, the following chapter, chapter 4, presents the findings that have been set up in the research method of chapter 3. So it just kind of just eases that reader into your next chapter. Just very quickly are the headings that you use when you're writing APA. Chapter titles is always a level 1 heading, how it must be placed on the page. All your subheadings in your chapters have to be left aligned, subheadings. Now if you have a subheading and you're using, like, I'm just going to use an example in your methodology, you're using a quantitative approach and a qualitative approach because you decided on mixed method. So you'd have the design right here, and then you'd have a subheading where you talk about the qualitative method you use and the quantitative method you use. In a format of a thesis writing, you will use level 1 and 2, sometimes 3. Very seldom will you get into a level 4 or 5. That's more for the dissertation. So I think that's about all I have for you today. I'm looking forward to reading your chapter 2, your literature review this week, but this hopefully will get you set for your last chapter, chapter 3. Please let me know if you have questions. I answer your emails as soon, when I see them, I try to answer them as soon as possible. So have an enjoyable week.